Welcome back to another segment of my chat too with Ralph Sinensky and John Dayton as we continue to cover stories from Hollywood.
Could we talk about a day on the Waltons? Let's say can you tell us before first day of shooting, did you meet with Earl or did you meet with the writers, or how were you involved in the casting of your episode?
Of course. Yeah. Well, Earl, and I still marvel at this, that on my very first show that I went into with a complaint about the script. I usually didn't do that on our first show, but I did that on the first one. And I didn't hesitate if I had something to say, because I just liked the show so much and respected it. And if I thought there was something, I didn't complain as much at that first one. And I think we talked about this on our earlier chat, that there was that scene on the first show that I thought was so charming, but it just was there and nothing else happened. And I mentioned that to Earl, and he wrote another scene, which was like a closure, which was even funnier. And that was the scene between John Boy and Ike. And then
this was on the Chicken Thief.
On the Chicken Thief,
mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to do anything on the next two, but on the conflict, I did. I went in because I thought the ending was wrong. And he rewrote it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So let's say one of the shows you got, one of the episodes of the Waltons, you got the script and you liked it. Would you still meet with Earl?
No. You mean to sit down to have him tell me how to do it?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I believed in giving the producer as little coverage.
Yeah.
It really got to the end. I can remember on Paper Chase, I got to the place where I wanted to make it difficult for the producer to come down to the set, because some of those younger producers were.
Yeah.
The Waltons had no problem. I love Bobby Robert Jacks and Earl. Earl and Carol McKean. Carol McKean, who was the story editor. When you had good people, you didn't fight with them. You worked with them. But then sometimes you didn't want the producer to feel too friendly if you really didn't want him interfering. So you sort of just stayed quiet.
Yeah. Did you have like a production meeting with the production team?
Always for every show, 8 of them. We could go into a long session with a member from every single department, and you went through the show page by page, covering everything for each department. Oh, for every show, always.
That would
be the prop department, the wardrobe department, the art department, all of it. This is for our viewers to talk, for them to know what was required from their department.
And like on the FBI, because it was sponsored by Ford Motors, and so there was a representative from the agency that represented Ford, Tom, who came to every meeting. And so when we got to each scene, whatever the car, we told them specifically what kind of car we needed, and they would provide it.
Wow.
But and it was that way with every department, so that when you got to the set, that's why things ran so smoothly. They just were planned out.
Mm-hmm. So for our fans, your involvement with each episode would be pre-production, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the actual shooting. So how many days did you prepare?
6.
6. So 6 days were given to prepare a specific episode.
Yes.
Okay. And
by the Director's Guild contract, 6 days to prepare and 7 days to shoot. But of course, so many shows were shot in 6 days, 6 day schedule. And my first year of directing, I shot 2 for Universal that were on 5 day schedules.
Yeah.
They were 5 day at that time,
How many pages a day?
probably 10.
Wow. I think we shot an average of 8 pages a day. Does
Eight,
that?
8 to 10, yeah. Well, what the Waltons had a 6.5 day schedule.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but we had a lot of cast members, which makes it tough. Yeah, the more people, the more
I think
potential coverage for
the only
scenes.
time I ran into a problem where I couldn't finish the sequence on this specific day I was filming was the firestorm.
Mm.
I just needed to go in and the next day I still had more shots to do. But
Was
most
that around the fire, that whole big sequence that
that
was
whole
burning?
scene, yeah.
Yeah,
But most of the time, Waltons was an easy show to film.
And Ralph, what was your feeling? I know what my feeling was on the set. What was your general feeling about the atmosphere of stage 26 and all of the craziness that was happening? And we got such beautiful shows from you. What was your feeling?
But I don't know what stage was 26.
That was our main stage.
where the house was, the
Okay.
interior of the house. and stuff.
Interiors. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the only stage I remember was stage 11, which was Dr. Kildare.
Oh, that's at MGM.
Huh? Yeah.
That's at MGM.
I never knew the numbers.
Well, at that point,
And I can remember, I'll tell you funny, the second show I did for Universal. And the first one I did was a Checkmate, which shot at where the old Review studio in Studio City. And then I did one for a series called Channing, which was still a 5 day schedule. It's a great story. One day of location, we were going to be in a high school auditorium because it was a story about a concert pianist. And we had a full day there with an audience and stuff on the stage. And Stanley Rubin, wonderful, lovely man, good producer. And he had been at CBS as an executive earlier. And we arrived at the studio, and on the stage is a concert grand piano, but it's white. And I mean, if you had asked for a white concert grand piano, nobody could have ever found it. Here, we're going to be doing a show about a legitimate concert pianist concert. It had to be black. And so Stanley, apologized profusely. And there was no way we could get the black piano that day. So he just asked me to do everything on the stage that didn't involve the piano, which was very little, but shoot the audience. So I still had most of the stuff with the piano to shoot when we got back to the studio on a 5 day schedule. So I now go back and have in my next 4 days have 4.5 days of filming to do. And so because they didn't need that big a space to do just the stage, it was a large room off of one of the places where they were building sets. I can remember, we were working like crazy to get it done. And at one point I had to go to the John. That's strange studio, never worked here before. Went to the John, and then I couldn't find the room for shooting. And I panicked, but we did get back, and we filmed it. We got it done. But I can remember that day coming back, and I just went out of the room, went to the soundstage, hadn't paid any attention to where I was. Wasn't a soundstage. It was just a bunch of workplaces where they were building. where's the room off of which one of these? And I was panicking.
But you did it.
Did it? And
Yeah.
so it's not a bad show. Not a great show, but not a bad show. Julia Lovsky was in it. Henry Jones was in it.
Oh.
It was the first show that I had my friend Marlon Mason in.
Mhm. Okay, so Ralph, pre-production is done. You listened to everybody, and we've got everything set for your first day of shooting. How soon after pre-production did you start filming?
The next day.
The next day. What was your day like? Your first day on an episode?
Like any other day, because when I came into, I tried to have the whole show planned before I started. Sometimes it didn't work, but I had anything. If I couldn't do the whole show, I had everything before the weekend plan, so I'd have the weekend to plan the rest of it.
Yes, I remember you coming in on a Saturday and walking around. I ran into you walking around the stage, and
I did that. Yeah. I did that in the early days. I started it at Metro and made arrangements with Ken Hollywood, who was so that I could come on the soundstage and do my blocking on the set. And I was still doing that when I did 12 O'Clock High in 1965. Was still doing that, and then I got to the place where I didn't have to do that anymore. But I mean, doing that in the wintertime, those sound stages were cold.
Mm.
But I needed to be on the actual set to do it. During those early years.
Yeah, and you taught me how important geography was for example, in the living room, we had that door that we've talked about before, the door to the grandparents' bedroom, and then there was another door, and you taught me how important it was to stay true to the geography of the set.
Well, and so that your audience is not confused, to just know what the setting is, to know the background.
Yeah, I always refer to that door as the mystery door because I only saw it used twice. Once Grandma came out of the door. So we assumed it was an entrance to the grandparents' room, but so there was always the question of, so why did they go up the stairs and enter the bedroom all the time from the landing when it appeared that there was a door right there off the living room that went into their bedroom?
I never knew about that door.
Yeah, it was there throughout the series. And then in one of our final reunion movies, when Aaron marries Paul Northridge, Paul and so Morgan Stevens and Richard Gilliland were in the grandparents' room where he was getting dressed for the wedding, and there's a knock, and they go over and they let in Paul's father through that door. Now, if you were inside the grandparents' bedroom, that occasionally that door was used as a closet. So it was always kind of
It's a big closet, the living room.
yeah, or you went through the closet into the bedroom. Who knows?
I didn't know that.
So there was that. There was funny doors that we just rarely use. Like there was a door in the kitchen that was sort
to
of
the
off
right of the stove. Yeah.
Well, there was that one which we mostly saw. We occasionally saw it as like a pantry, or or sometimes a broom closet. But there was another door past the sink, like that where the alcove was.
Yeah, I think
where the ironing board was. There was to the right, there was the exit that went through the back porch. But to the left, if you're facing that alcove, there was another door, which we saw maybe once, I think Jim Bob came in from outside or something, but again, these random doors
I never,
that were never established or really identified or used.
Ralph, when you approach a scene on the Waltons, let's say it's in the kitchen, would you shoot the master first?
oh, always. You always shot the widest shot first and then moved in where you just had to add other lights to it. Always start with the widest shot.
And
And always get all of your shots in one direction before you do any reverses. You don't go this way and then this way.
yeah, because our reverses more shots of if you were on the other side of the kitchen table was the living room. and we'd have to stop and relight the living room. I remember we did that pretty fast.
Yeah, and move everything, all the equipment and everything that was in the living room, and reset all the furniture and put walls back in.
I never took a wall out on the Walton set. I did on other shows, but I always figured the Walton set was so big. My concern was trying at the beginning. I tried to do it, then I gave up trying to shoot it in such a way so the room didn't look so big. Then I just accepted it.
Was that the kitchen you're talking about?
The kitchen and the living room.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at that and then compare it to the pictures of Earl's house, it was much bigger as it needed to be.
Yeah.
But that way, I never took any wall out.
It was pretty common, in the kitchen scene for that alcove wall to come out. And sometimes the wall behind the kitchen sink came out. That was much more rare.
Yeah, I never did that.
Wow.
And can I ask you, from an actor's perspective, while you were shooting the master, were you watching the actors? For example, we were shooting at the table, and the family's there. Were you watching to determine maybe I would want to do a close up of Judy because she had done something?
It was all planned beforehand.
Okay.
Yep. So no matter how brilliant I wasn't going to get more of a close up than he had planned.
It's depending on the scene.
Yeah.
Depending on the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Content there.
If there was something important in the scene, then I was out to make that point. So it was all planned.
Yeah, ahead of time. So hopefully we'll be able to insert a picture of your scripts, which were extraordinary. I remember you have an arrow and it would down the right or the left side of the page, and it would extend as far as you wanted the master to go.
Sometimes over more than one page.
Mm-hmm. And then you would have I believe you labeled them A, B, C. Those were the
A, B, C. That was if the camera moved.
Ralph, I got to tell you one little story. You might not even remember this, but you were directing across from us. You were directing. Oh, Eight is Enough. 8 is Enough.
Oh yes.
Remember with Dick?
Yes.
Yeah. And you had me come over and I played a little. There was a part of a acting student who was, I believe, rehearsing with Lori or whatever her name was in the show. I'd forgotten totally that you had done a close-up of me. You had, I was so honored that you did that. I don't think it ever made the show, but I've been getting, tiny residuals for it. Yeah. That was interesting because sometimes the cast, Judy, didn't you do Willie Ames?
Yes, I did a segment with him because he did an episode of The Waltons.
That was the first time that he did that. He did 8 is Enough, And then he also was in The Family Nobody Wanted. But the Waltons, the first time I used him.
Mm.
Yeah, he was wonderful. And you could literally, we were stage 26, they were stage 27. You could literally walk between the sets. And having experienced the 8 is Enough set versus our set, the whole atmosphere was so different on the two shows, just totally different.
If there was a shot in 8 is Enough, the way that set was laid out, and I saw the set, and I was kind of probably enthralled with that shot that I talked about from Claudia. And I wanted to, there was a shot, a scene where I could do that, where I brought somebody in, and I was just wanted the camera to move all the way through almost all of the rooms, and we did it with the wheelchair.
You literally, you had the camera operator sitting in the wheelchair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me for this segment with Ralph Zininsky and John Dayton. I'll be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons, more Ask Judy, more special guests. If you're enjoying these, please do hit like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.